a monster.
I'm your number one fan.
Now clear your minds. Knows what scares you. It has from the very beginning.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
It's been informed that zombies have entered the building. They're at the door. They're coming in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. I'm your host as always, Corey, and alongside me is my good pal, Tony. What's going on, brother?
Not much, bud. How you been?
I've been good. So, tonight we got an awesome theme.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've been wanting to visit. So you just want to jump straight into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are we covering?
I can't contain my excitement anymore. I have to chomping at the bit to get this one done.
Okay, all right. So, Italian films. We haven't really been covering much, and I'm glad that you kind of brought up that, hey, why don't we cover Italian films this month? And I'm definitely okay with that because why not? I love Italian.
I am such a fan of Italian horror. It's unreal, man. I like anytime I can pop one in and check it out. Just something. There's such a charm to Italian horror,
Mm-hmm.
and there's something there that just draws you in. It doesn't draw everybody in because it could be decisive. There's a lot of people that can't get past the. Of course, when you think about Italian films, you think about the dub, think about all that kind of thing, and.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people can't look past it. I, for one, adore it. I love it, and I love Italian cinema in general. But
Yeah.
Italian horror is just it's my bread and butter, man. It's where I go to. So
Most
we
people
figure,
have to understand though that it is a foreign film
Yeah.
in a foreign language, and
they shoot their films differently. They don't shoot it the same way.
well, and obviously it's going to be in a foreign language, so yeah, I mean you're going to go into it with it. I mean you can't expect it not to be dubbed, But like I'm with you there though. It adds to the charm of the Italian cinema. That's with any Italian film. I mean you got of course like the spaghetti westerns, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I mean you can't go wrong with those neither. So
Exactly why I said Italian cinema as a whole, because I love
in
spaghetti
general.
too, dude. Oh yeah, I'm such a big fan of them. Giallos and of course the straight horror films, supernatural horror films. I mean, they do it so well, and they've done it well for a long time. And actually, this is why I'm kind of excited to get into this one, because this is such a trend center for Italian horror. The movie we're about to cover tonight and talk about. So I'm really, really excited to talk about this one.
Yes. Beforehand, since we kind of did a little backwards, I guess you would say, folks, before you jump into this film or this review with us, make sure you head over to our Facebook group where we've got, discussions, whatever, memes, and it's a closed group, so come and join. Ask to join, we'll let you in, and we have fun in there. I post stuff, Tony posts stuff, everyone posts stuff, and we just allow it. As long as you're within the guidelines of the podcast and horror. Anything outside of horror we don't really allow in there, but feel free to add memes and questions. I really love it when folks ask questions to the other fans or of the podcast in there, and it really shows that we've got a tight knit community, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love when, like you said, to piggyback off of what you said, when someone asks a question and everybody in the group kind of jumps in and gives their opinions and stuff like that. That's what I get excited about. It's really cool getting everybody's different tastes in movies and what they really, really love and what they really gravitate to. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff that really gets me excited seeing posted in there. And yeah, it's awesome to see the communicative effort that goes into keeping the page running and stuff like that. We have a great group of people in there. So
and informative. There's a lot of informative people in
100%.
there as well. So thank you guys for being who you are, and get the word out.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you, and for your support too. I mean, me and Corey won't be able to do it without you guys. So it's truly, truly amazing to see the support and the love that we've been getting over the past even couple of months with this podcast going. It's awesome. It's motivating, and we enjoy doing it. We enjoy talking about movies in general, but to have that group, that community involved as well, it means a lot to us. So we don't take it. We appreciate it. We really do.
Yes, we do. Well, without further ado, Tony, what are we covering tonight, man?
Corey, we are covering Mario Bava's 1960 Black Sunday, or Mask of Satan. Got a couple other titles as well, but most audiences know it as Black Sunday, and most people know Black Sunday. So, yes, we are talking about Black Sunday.
Now, upon us talking about what we were going to cover, we had the discussion, and you said, "What about a Bava film?" And I was all giddy for it. I was like, "Yes, we haven't covered a Mario Bava. This would be fun." I think you suggested Kill Baby Kill, correct?
Did, yes. That was the first one that popped into my brain to actually cover, but you had mentioned, I think. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I was just about to say, that movie, I adore that movie. So I was all giddy for it. Let's do it, and then I think I had mentioned that I had never seen this film.
That's what.
Yeah, and that's what triggered you, and we got to do it.
Yep.
But going into this film, I honestly think I had seen this before. I don't know, like it's weird to me because I knew the basic premise of the film, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I've seen this.
Yeah.
It was weird for me. So I don't know. I had actually just recently bought it too, so I don't know if maybe there was a night where we watched it together and I'm piggybacking off that. Maybe it was, honestly, I used to work third shift and I would come over and we would watch like 6 movies. And by that 6th movie, I was fucking gone because I had been up for like 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
So that might have been one of those movies. I don't know. But I distinctly remember, like, I was sitting down and I was like, damn, this really does look familiar to me. So I don't know.
Maybe you have
it's strange.
Heard it from a viewing before.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm thinking maybe we watched it together at some point. You maybe tried opening my eyes to it, and I was just gone.
Possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible. We've watched a lot of movies together, so for me to 100%.
We've watched a lot of Italian together.
Yes, there's just no way. But like I said, it's very possible.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen tons of shit together, but there's no telling if Black Sunday was in the rotation. I mean, as much as I love this movie and watch it constantly, it might have been, but the fact that you have a vague memory of it, or you remember the plot, or because I was going to ask you, I was like, well, what did you think going in? The fresh take. What did you think of like the plot and everything, considering what time period it took place and when it was made?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I loved everything about it. The time period was great. The storyline was awesome. I dug it. You really almost going into it and seeing the set, and it was kind of funny because my daughter actually walked in while I was watching the movie, and so I'm sitting there, I'm watching it tonight before this episode, and my daughter walks in and she was like, where's Frankenstein?
Right. Yeah.
Because I felt like, and it's funny that I was getting the same feelings as my daughter, like, who was only 6 years old. And of course she adores 1930s Frankenstein, the classic, Boris Karloff. Was it Boris Karloff? Yeah, it was Boris Karloff. But yeah, she adores Frankenstein. So it was kind of funny, she walked in and made that assumption. I don't know if it was just because it was a black and white film, but I got that feel completely off of just watching like the opening scene you know, the camera's panning over, and you could clearly tell it's a set piece. It's not like location. But I dug it. Yeah, everything about the film I adore, so I'm ready to get into it.
That being said, guys, our listeners out there, we will be. I mean, I'm not quite sure how many people have seen Black Sunday before, but we will be going over spoilers, and we'll be talking in depth with the plot and the characters and everything. So if you haven't seen it, highly suggest you check it out. It's one of the more mainstream, I'd say, Italian horror films that's been made, along with Suspiria, things like that. It really, this is probably the movie that Mario Bava, it was his directorial debut, but it is the movie that put him on the map and that put Italian horror on the map. I mean, it really did. It did so well when it came out. It was paired with, I think, The Little Shop of Horrors, the original, because they used to do a double bill back then. And it came out, I think, AIP produced it in America, and it did very well over here. So it's more or less one of the more mainstream horror films that's come out of Italy, especially during that time. So it was very successful. It was very well done. But if anyone hasn't seen it, yeah, I highly suggest you check it out, then come back in and join in the conversation with me and Corey, and you know, hear what we got to say about it and bring to the table on certain things that happened. But
I will say I didn't check out where you could catch this film, but I mean, if it's a Kino Lorber release, it might be on Shudder, maybe. I know they have a ton of Italian horror.
Ton of Italian stuff, and I think it used to be on Shudder. I don't know if they still have it on there or not. I did check before. I believe it was on there when I was subscribed. So if you guys do see it on there, and if anybody has Shudder, please definitely give it a shot. It's
not one you want to miss.
Right. It's well worth it.
So Tony, with that being said, so this is Mario Bava's first debut film as a director. So my question to you is and I'm kind of picking your brain a little bit, and we're kind of getting off subject a little bit with this question, but just curious, what is your first Mario Bava film that you ever watched?
Black Sunday.
Really?
Director. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. I saw it before I even realized it was Bava that directed it. And at the time when I saw it, I didn't even realize it was an Italian film, because you could tell when the opening credits roll up, there's an Italian crew involved and stuff like that. So you know it's an Italian film if you see the opening credits. But I believe when I watched it little past the credits when our two main characters are traveling through the woods on the stagecoach, and that's when I remember first seeing it. I missed one of the greatest scenes ever, the Inquisitor scene, the opening scene of this movie, which to me is as iconic as it gets. This is a legendary scene, legendary opening of a horror film. And like I said, can't wait to talk about it. But yeah, this is the first Bava film that I've seen, and it really made an impact on me when I saw it, as far as appreciating black and white horror and appreciating atmosphere and sound design, because the sound design in this movie is second to none. It's masterfully done. There's so much ambient noise and wind, and one of my favorite things is when the wind is flowing and it's going through the organ in the dilapidated chapel. You can hear it flowing through the organ, and the sound that it's making is so unsettling and eerie, and it's fantastic, man. I love the design in this film. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna get into it. I just wanted to pick your brain because I think you were turned on to Bava a while before I was.
Oh yeah.
I think my first Bava film, which I don't really have a top 5 right now because I'm still getting into Bava. You know, I paid more attention to Fulci and Argento and Umberto Lenzi and stuff, those guys. And I really should have honed in on Mario Bava's stuff, but I'm getting there, and I'm building a collection of Mario Bava's stuff right now.
Which, to me, is incredible because you wouldn't have guys like Argento and Fulci if it wasn't for Bava.
Exactly,
So
because
he is the template for Italian horror. He is the man. So I just think it's cool that he is the one that put Italian horror essentially on the map.
Well, and all the guys that I watched idolized him so much, you know.
Oh,
you could tell that each of them took something from him.
Oh yeah,
you know?
definitely.
So, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I'm backtracking and getting into Mario Bava's stuff more. But the first film I ever watched was Blood and Black Lace.
Oh,
yeah,
another fantastic film.
Love it.
Yeah,
and you did turn me on to Kill Baby Kill. So, and I have seen that. There's a couple other ones I have seen, but you know, like I said, I'm building a collection of Mario Bava stuff now. So that's going to be coming up. But yeah, so into this movie, you want to go over the basic plot? Well, what's your thoughts? Because you asked me what my thoughts were going into this movie. What's yours?
Well, going in blind, because I knew you had. Well, I thought you had seen it before, but then you kind of surprised me when you said, "Hey, I kind of remember this and this and that." So getting a take from it will be kind of different. But as far as the plot goes, no, the plot is it feels so classic. There's something about it that feels so timeless, and I know that Bava essentially made this film based on this story, and I wrote it down. Let me see here. Based on Nikolai I might butcher this name, Nikolai Gogol's short story V. So it is a story that has been written already, a short story. And I know that Bava used to read it to his kids at night, and it used to scare them, so they used to want to sleep in the same room with him because the story really got under their skin and kind of unsettled them a little bit. So I thought that was pretty neat. This is more of a passion project for him because he really enjoyed the story and he wanted to get this film made. So when they actually gave him the opportunity, because he had been a cinematographer for years, he had been a cinematographer for Riccardo Freda, who was another very, very popular Italian director at the time. So he finally got his chance with this movie. And like I said, the fact that he got a chance to direct his first feature film, and it was a story that was very familiar to him and that he really, really enjoyed, it shows on screen because he really did take the premise and the plot, and he really just completely dove into it and poured his heart and soul into this film. And it shows. It shows his cinematography because the shots are gorgeous. They're beautiful. And there's so much lushness to the black and white. As far as the cinematography, there's shots, and we'll talk about it a little later because there's scenes that really showcase his cinematography. But the story, basic story wise, was very personal to him. So the fact that he took it on was pretty remarkable for his first feature film.
It's awesome. Yeah, you know, going into this and it being a black and white film, you know, I used to get turned off by that. I guess at the time I never appreciated actual cinema. I mean, there's many ways to appreciate cinema, but something about a black and white film it's good. It's like going back to your roots almost.
It's very timeless, man. Very
it
timeless.
Is. And it's again it's I'm wanting to say it's more of an art than anything. You know, and even though back then that's all they had, you know, but well, I mean, guess not 1960 because back then that was color, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, they could.
Yeah, color. Yeah. So
Accessible.
he could have shot this movie in color, but I mean, clearly it would have been a cheaper way to go black and white. But
yeah, 100%.
I don't think that it was by accident or you know just because of budget. I think this was. Again, something he was probably passionate about, and I enjoy it being in black and white.
Well, it's actually funny that you brought that up, Corey, because years passed after the movie was released and it became a huge popular hit. Um, his camp was reached. Something like a producer reached out to his camp and wanted to produce a remake of this in color, and Bava flat out refused to allow it to happen. He did not want it in color. He wanted it to stay black and white. He did not want the film remade.
That just goes to show right there.
Yeah, how much his passion was for this movie, and how he, what's funny about Bava is he looks back on his filmography and he's not, I wouldn't say he's happiest about it. He's not, he doesn't consider his films to be amazing and this and that. But the fact is, Bava never made a bad film. Never made a bad film. So the fact that he was lukewarm on his filmography is shocking, because he just doesn't realize he didn't realize how amazing his films were. And it just goes to show that there's no one harder on yourself than yourself.
You're your own worst critic.
You're your own worst critic, and Bava certainly was. But he was passionate about this one, and he flat out refused. He's like, no, it's not. I'm not signing off on a remake, especially if it's in color. It's not going to happen.
No. Wow, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and I think that's what makes this film shine for me. I mean, the storyline's great and everything else, but I mean, if this film was done in color, it would just be a normal film to me. But it's got that different feel because it's black and white. It almost feels older, almost like a sense of class.
Yeah.
Well,
like you said, even when you said Natty had said something about it. Where's Frankenstein? It feels like
a 1930s film.
Universal stuff. Like, that's what it feels like. It has that feel. It has that atmosphere. It has that template that those movies had, and what made those movies the biggest things in the world at that time. People loved the Universal stuff. So, like I said, it just shows in a different time period that this still works, and that it's well. And I think a lot of the reason it was in black and white, because at the time, this movie was very graphic.
Yeah, and had it been shown in color,
it would have been.
They would have edited the piss out of it, probably.
Yeah, because this movie was still censored in Britain for the longest time. They censored it and they never showed it because of the extreme. Well, at that time, the extreme graphic.
Was it part of the video nasties list?
No, it was never. I don't think it was ever part of the video nasty list, but it definitely was censored in Britain, and I think the full uncut version wasn't seen there until the early '90s. So it was censored for a while.
Yeah, that's like 30 years.
Yeah, I mean,
damn,
it's insane.
Wow, it's awesome.
Yeah. Crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm glad that we got the version we got here in America.
Absolutely, yeah. I am too, because I mean, did we want to kind of go over the basic plot and kind of? Yeah, okay. So essentially, we have in Moldavia, yeah. There's a witch named Aja, and her consort, Yavultic, I believe is his name.
Igor Yavutic.
Yeah. So they are being, it's an inquisitor scene, the opening scene. So they're being basically tortured for being instruments of evil, and for selling their souls to Satan. And they're getting, like I said, basically getting tortured. Not only that, but it's her brother that is sentencing them to death, and he's basically saying, like, you were consorting with the devil. We're damning you and torturing you, and may your soul be lost in hell. He's basically going through that, and she basically puts a curse on his descendants, and not the town, just his descendants. And before she ultimately which is a gnarly scene when they put the mask over her face. with the nails, and they slam the mallet into the mask, and you can see the blood gushing through, and it's like I said, very graphic for its time. Very,
Well,
very.
even what I like about that scene is when he brands her. That, I mean, for 1960, that looked pretty real.
Yeah, that brand alone looked gnarly.
It looked like it was burning her flesh.
Mhm.
I would have loved to meet her and ask her how they did that.
Yeah, that scene.
Yeah, because I mean, she was moving around and stuff, and you could, I'm damn near. Did they actually burn her?
Right. Well, at that time, I mean, the filmmaking was very different. I mean, they didn't really have actresses and actors' best intentions in mind at the time. But I think Bava was very, very well. Well, his scenes and stuff were very well thought out. He never put his actors and actresses in any way, really. So, no, man, the executioners. Those executioners were big dudes too, man. They were huge. They must have got like nothing but Italian bodybuilders to be the executioners, because they were all massive human beings. It was insane. They're very intimidating for her. I mean, Barbara Steele, she seems like a very small, petite lady. Just to have them, towering over her and branding her and then hammering the mask of Satan down on her face is like gnarly as hell, man.
Pretty gnarly, yeah.
It really is. But that whole scene is legendary to me. Like what she says, the curse that she puts on him, the torture itself, like everything about that opening scene to me is just brilliant. Just perfect gothic Italian horror in one scene alone. That's exactly what you would think.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love that scene. The opener was just such a great scene.
Yeah, and it gets you sucked right into the story too. You're fully invested at that point, and like wanting to know what's gonna happen, what's going on. So it's cool to see. This is the movie that basically also put Barbara Steele on the map. This is the movie. Yeah, this is the movie that really her career skyrocketed, especially in Italy. She was in everything in Italy.
Here's the thing. Barbara Steele, she was an American actress, right?
No, she's a British actress. Yeah.
Oh, she's British. Okay. So it's probably easier for her to film those films over there.
Right. Oh yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. I didn't know that. I thought she was American.
Which is funny because reading some of the trivia, her and Bava really didn't get along on set. They were really, going back and forth. She thought that Bava was going to try to get her completely naked at one point in scenes, and
there is a scene where I almost thought that, and I was like, wow, that's a bit ambitious. I thought that they were going to show her in that scene, and I didn't remember that scene. So when I seen that, I was actually kind of blown away. We'll get to that scene. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, for sure. But she had said that her and Bava did not get along on set, and she was but then she later admitted a lot of it was down to her being a little bit more immature at that time, and she wasn't really as seasoned as an actress at that time, so she was a little bit more of a diva. She caused a little bit of a problem on set, and Bava was contentious with her, and she said she actually said it was more my fault than anything. So you being a young actress at the time and kind of being a diva.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, if you're getting into acting and stuff and you're making money all of a sudden doing it, you probably want to party, on your nights off, stuff like that. And and with him being, first of all, the maestro he is, and then on top of it, this being his first film, of course he wants to be as professional as possible. So I could see, somebody that's probably like 20 something years old, still acting young, and then somebody being a professional, probably that wouldn't work out too well. But
well, I think it was also like a culture shock for her. She wasn't used to doing movies that way. I mean, Italians do movies very different than even Britain or American does. I mean, they shoot their films very differently, and I guess it was kind of like a culture shock for her too. She wasn't quite prepared for that.
Okay.
And wasn't used to that and being on that time schedule. And because I know that usually this is another thing I read in the trivia, The usual shoot for an Italian production was like 3 to 4 weeks or something like that. But Bava was actually given about 6 weeks, so he was actually getting given 2 more extra weeks to get this done. So he was actually able to take his time more, set up shots, to his standard and his liking. They actually gave him that kind of leeway, which was really cool. I'm glad they did, because you can tell that the extra care was taken when it comes to certain shots and scenes being set up. So that's pretty cool too, that they actually gave him that extra time.
Yeah.
Especially for your first feature. I mean, if you give him that extra time, this being your first movie, that's pretty ambitious and remarkable.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, like I said, Yavutic and Aja are put to death. This is cool because I didn't notice this before. They wanted to burn her body, but as they were attempting to do that, there was a heavy storm that came through and it rained out. So they had to bury her body in the crypt of her ancestors, which I thought was interesting, because they buried Yavutic's body in a desecrated ground for murderers or something like that in the film. So they didn't even bury her along with him. They buried her in like the sacred crypt and her sacred family tomb, which I thought was interesting, considering she had been, chastised and cast out of the family for consorting with evil and the devil. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, and then they put her in a tomb that had a glass window.
Yeah, which I love. I love that. That's so
cool.
And
I think that they used to do that back in the day. Actually put people in caskets with glass. I've seen that, where they have glass on the tomb so that you could always go down into the crypt and see your loved ones. Just bizarre. And
then there's the cross that's casting a shadow on her, so it's basically like keeping her at bay, her soul at bay, which is really, really cool. But yeah, centuries later, we have our two main characters. We have Andrei Gorobic and Dr. Kruvayan, who are two doctors, and they're attending a conference somewhere in Moldavia. And as they're
Moscow.
Moscow. They're passing through to go to Moscow. Yeah, they're passing through to go to Moscow. So on their way, their stagecoach driver, which I thought was really neat, he's sitting there drinking vodka. And I'm like, this is like early drunk driving. Like you have like this stagecoach driver who's kind of like a little bit sauced on some vodka, and he's trying to navigate through the woods, and he's scared of the curse of the witch. And I just thought that was really neat how this dude's like, they're just cool with it. They're just going along with the flow. And, this guy's completely, I wouldn't say he's drunk or anything like that, but he is sipping. So I thought that was pretty cool. But anyway, they have their version of a breakdown when the wheel kind of dislodges from the carriage and they're stranded. So as he's working on that, they decide to start walking around and kind of, they hear the sound.
Sightseeing, yeah.
Yeah, they hear the I think
the
it's
thing
odd.
is what I love about that shot, though, that scene, let me backtrack a little bit. So they're riding along and they come to a stop. There's almost like a fork in the road. And like, this is the safe passage. This is the evil passage. And they're like, hey, let's go down that road. And he's like, no one goes down that road. It's bumpy. It's, it hasn't been used for years. And they were like, yeah, but it's a shortcut. So go down that road. And there he was like, no, and he had his suspicion, they give him like a shilling and he's like, okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
But what I love is like 5 feet into this trail, he like stops and they're like, what's going on? And he's like, you see that branch? It tried choking me.
Yeah, it tried to choke me. But I love the dubbing on it. It just sounds so funny when he says it's great. There's a lot of scenes that are said with the dub that just make me laugh, just the way they're said. And that's one of them. That just so happens to be one of the scenes.
Yeah.
But everything with the stagecoach driver was funny. He's just I fought for the war. I fought the war against Napoleon, but to be honest with you, I can't handle this this curse of the witch. It's just it's under my skin or something like that. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
Makes you feel for the time period that they're in. when you start talking about fighting the war against.
Homeboy fought against Napoleon.
Yeah. I love that, dude. But yeah, so anyway, they're in this broken down chapel, and they follow the sound of the it's a very, very odd sound because the wind is, like I said earlier, cutting through the organ that's in disrepair, and it's going through the pipe, so it's making a very, very strange sound, and they follow it to the old organ, and he's like, oh, that's what it is. That's what that noise is coming from. So then they find the tomb of Aja the witch, and I guess they get attacked by this bat, and he starts flailing around his cane, and he knocks everything out, and he knocks the cross over and everything. He just bludgeons everything, and
he finally shoots the bat.
Yeah, finally shoots the bat. Which is funny. Something about Italians and bats in their movies. That's one thing that I've always noticed with Italian horror, is that there's always a bat scene. There's always a scene with a bat somehow. They find a way to pencil it into their script. I don't know, something about, I just always noticed that. But yeah, so he breaks through the glass and he cuts himself, and a little bit of the blood from his wrist, I think, gets on Aja, and what they don't realize is starting to actually bring her back to life in a sense.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing, okay? They knew of the curse, because I don't know, it seemed like he was very informative on the situation of who she was, because he then reached in and pulled the mask off of her, and then took what was it, like a tablet or something out of her tomb. Not
like for the people out there, not like a tablet, but like this ancient scroll kind of thing. Yeah.
It was like, and it was in a different language and everything, because at one point they're deciphering it.
Right, yeah, they try to decipher. The priest actually tries to decipher it, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is if you know about the witch, you know about the legend, you know about the story, everything, you know about the curse, why the fuck are you going to remove that shit from that tomb? That just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't believe that they really even bought into it. I don't think that they really even thought it was. I mean, they knew of it, but they didn't think that the curse was an actual liable thing that could happen. So they really didn't especially Kruvayan. Gorobic seems like he's like a very naive kind of just goes along with what.
Well, he does make a comment later on in the movie where he's talking about, I believe in science, and so
yeah. So he doesn't believe in supernatural. Well, they're both men of science too. They're doctors, so they don't really believe in the supernatural in a sense. They really believe in science itself. Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with the separation between science and religion and the supernatural. All that kind of plays into it, into the story and into the plot itself too. So
yeah,
that's pretty fascinating stuff that Bava was kind of able to kind of play along with those themes and kind of explore them a little bit here and there with but doing it subtly too, not throwing it in your face and in the audience's face either, because he didn't really do that. They don't really dwell on it too much. They just kind of mention it here and there and with scenes like that, with short scenes. But I think that's what it was. I don't think they really, being men of science, I don't really think they put much value in it, and they didn't really. They were kind of more cocky than anything else. Well, especially Kruvayan, which, makes sense. He's the older one. He's more of the mentor of Andre. So, Andre just kind of goes along with the flow with him. You could tell that they have that kind of relationship. One's the mentor, one's the student. And, he kind of follows his beck and whim, and whatever he says, he kind of goes along with it. So I think that's probably got a little bit to do with it. Anyway, but it's interesting that he removes the mask and kind of takes it off, and I guess the curiosity just kind of got the better of him, and he had to see what was underneath the mask, and what he does find is quite shocking, because the body is still very much intact, and it's pretty remarkable considering it's been centuries since it's happened, since she's been put to rest.
Yeah.
So I thought
I dug it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty fascinating stuff there.
Yeah, and I really love how he, how it showed the blood dripping into the eyeball, and then next thing you know, there was shit moving and stuff. I really
Yeah,
love
I
it.
love those effects, man. I don't know how they were done, but they're really neat. They're really,
Yeah,
really, really, really kind of ahead of their time.
yeah, yeah. I agree. It was way ahead of its time. It just goes to show again, detail.
Detail, yeah,
Yeah.
for
I
sure.
mean, it was good.
So when they're leaving the chapel, they run into Katya, who is the princess of this region, and an ancestor, of course, to Aja the witch. Basically played in a dual role by Barbara Steele herself. She plays both
Hmm.
the witch and Katya, so that's really cool. She kind of does a dual role kind of thing. Um, but that scene when they run into her it's that one shot with her and the dogs, that shot is so iconic and so legendary. It's influenced a lot of directors. I think it influenced Richard Donner in The Omen. I think he was influenced by that with the cemetery scene in The Omen. Um, of course, Tim Burton, I think that's his favorite scene, and Black Sunday is one of his favorite films. So a lot of his work is you know influenced by Bava and Black Sunday, which is really cool. So, like I said, that shot is very iconic. If you've
Yeah.
seen it before, you'd know that it comes from Black Sunday, and it's one of those scenes that's like, oh, okay, yeah, I know where that's from. I get it. Even mainstream people would say like, hey, I know where that's from. I've seen that before.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that scene. That shot's really good.
Yeah. But the
Yeah.
scene kind of confuses me a little bit because the way that Katya is kind of like saying her lines and talking to them, you almost assume that she's kind of already kind of overtaken by the witch a little bit. The way she's kind of talking, and I don't know, it just seems for a moment that maybe just because it was the curse had been lifted almost, that she had started to kind of like have, I don't know, some sort of like presence on her or something, because just
Maybe.
the way she kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just a choice by Barbara Steele. Maybe it's just a decision on her part to act the scene that way. I don't know, but I always thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. It kind of confused me a little bit because okay, so here they were in this like abandoned crypt in the middle of nowhere, and supposedly these woods that no one goes to. And then she was like, "Oh, I was in the what did she say? I was in the park."
She's in the area, yeah, because she's walking the dogs, and I know that the castle that they live in is close by because it's part of their ancestral tomb. So I know that their residence is nearby. So it makes sense in a way that she is in that area because it's not far from their residence in the castle, because that
Okay.
is their family tomb and that is their family chapel in a sense, because she even makes a point to say that her father refuses to update anything or repair the chapel itself because of the bad history that it has with their ancestors.
Yeah. Well, and he was living on edge too. He was petrified.
Right.
So, of course, why would you want somebody going in there doing remodel work and stuff and, potentially damaging the tomb if everything was keeping her at bay,
I think that's what
the
he was concerned.
cross and everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's why he let it get into disrepair, because he was afraid of somebody potentially sabotaging what's keeping her at bay and her spirit at bay.
Hmm.
And exactly, unfortunately, what happens, and what pretty much strings along the rest of the plot is her attempting to reanimate, not reanimate herself, but reincarnate herself within Katya's body.
Hmm.
So she is basically a living vessel for her,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
when you really think about it, is pretty doom and gloom. I mean, that's why, Katya kind of has like this really, I wrote down, and she's like the first like really goth girl, because she's so depressed and kind of like she doesn't have any hope for a future. She's very, very down and gloomy all the time because essentially she was born to be the vessel of a witch, which is really, really fucked up if you think about it. She really, so that's her destiny and that's her fate almost, and which is up because there's a mention when her father, the prince, is actually talking about their family history that over the centuries that there's always a look-alike of Aja the witch in their history. So pretty much this has happened before, and she had tried to overtake the vessel of another princess that looked just like her. But I guess it didn't go through, and it didn't work out too well because she was still kept at bay. So I thought that was interesting. I think they go more into the depth of the story and stuff, and the small details of it kind of escape me. But this has happened before, and it has just been something that he had been dreading in his lifetime and his family's lifetime because he knew, I guess, he couldn't really do anything about it. It was almost like fate was on against him. Side. So he was very, like you said, on edge already, very, very spooked by everything that was going on.
I wonder if Ari Aster kind of got a feel from this film, with with his film.
It's possible.
Hereditary.
I mean, we talked about that, trying to relate to you kind of what it was like is like the vessel of evil and incarnation of evil is kind of the same way that we talked about it in Hereditary. So that
because even that, like, all hope was gone in that film.
Well, I really believe this is one of those films that most more modern horror directors have probably seen. It's a very influential film, not only in the technical aspects of the filmmaking, but just in Bava's way of telling the story and his way of like really, really toning into that classic horror. I mean, it really feels like, something like we said, something out of like the Universal Studios era of horror, black and white, true gothic horror. So I'm sure it's very influential in more modern circles of filmmakers. And like I said, I know Tim Burton said this is one of his favorite films. So Tim Burton's not necessarily a more genre director or more horror director, but I know he's had influence, and I'm sure a lot of other guys this has been hugely influential for them.
Oh yeah, because even like, and maybe you can help me out with this, but I got a feel for City of the Dead on this film too.
Oh yeah, dude. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I don't want to derail you, but for me, anytime it's like a stormy night where it's raining, where there's a real bad storm coming through, those are my go-to films that I pop in. It's Black Sunday and City of the Dead, because to me, those are two of the most perfect atmospheric gothic horror films ever made. I mean, they're phenomenal to me in terms of like atmosphere and just fog and shrouding cloud. Like all that stuff is just brilliantly done in this.
Oh yeah,
in City of the Dead. So
yeah, and that's what I was getting at. Like I get a strong feel and almost like because that was a British film, wasn't it?
Yeah,
City of the Dead. So I mean, that could be like I don't know which one came out. Like, did that come out before? I think it came out after this, didn't it?
It came out after Black Sunday did.
So it might have been a small inspiration,
Very, very. I mean, it made sense. I mean, they definitely had the same kind of vibe with the more satanic kind of
witchcraft type,
craft type stuff. Yeah, the same themes were prevalent in both films, of course. Small little area, small village kind of thing. You could definitely spot the similarities in that. But I do believe Black Sunday did come out first. So if anyone took inspiration from anybody, usually it's people taking inspiration from Bava. He's so influential.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. But so the two doctors, they head to the small town and stay at the local inn. That was a pretty jumping little place.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of good music going on. They were drinking some vodka. They were having the time of their life.
Yeah, no.
Party was popping there.
Who was it? Gorbic? Is that his name?
Gorobic.
Yeah.
Andre. I just call him Andre. That's his first name. So
okay. But he did he fall like head over heels in love with, with her immediately?
Instantly.
Yeah.
He was captivated by her beauty.
Yeah. And he was like, I'm gonna go see her.
Yeah. he had that liquid courage, man. He had a couple of shots of vodka in him. He was ready to go. Ready to go seek her out in the night. But Cruvaillon kind of like told him like, hey man, we got a long day ahead of us tomorrow. Just turn in for tonight and try to get some rest. Yep, at it early tomorrow. So
meanwhile, homeboy was going out and smoking a pipe.
Yeah, he turns in. And then Cruvaillon goes outside and starts kind of smoking a pipe. And then it kind of shifts focus to the innkeeper's daughter and her flat out refusing to go out there to milk the cows because she's scared of course, the stories of the witch and everything like that. She's kind of spooked and she don't want to go out there and by herself in the middle of the night.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, okay? The barn where this cow is like right next to right next to the graveyard with the satanic people buried in it.
Yeah, the murderers and stuff like that. So really, you get a good sense
why
of
the fuck would there be a barn with a cow in it right there?
Small town, man. Small little town, tiny town.
This barn wasn't even in town. She had to walk through the fucking woods.
Yeah. It's a small area. I love it because it's just so convenient. And I love how she tells her mother, I'll do it tonight, but tomorrow I won't. She's dead set on. It's like, nope, it's not happening. I'm not doing this anymore.
I know I said this last night, but
this time I mean it.
I ain't fucking around.
Another instance of where the dubbing kind of made me laugh and made me chuckle.
Yeah.
How dead set she was on like saying, I'm not doing this again tomorrow night. Not happening.
Yeah. I did catch that. That's funny.
Yeah. But another thing I wanted to bring up for the black and white, the kind of the feel of the movie and stuff like that. So Bava, the sets were designed in monochrome, absent of all color, to add to the doom and the dark mood of the film, which I thought was pretty cool. It's another little technical aspect that Bava tried to incorporate into the film to make it more atmospheric, which I thought was perfectly done because this movie is wonderfully atmospheric.
Oh yeah,
to a T.
Because even there's a scene where fog does roll in a little.
Mm-hmm.
There's the scene where, which we'll get into it, but the stagecoach and everything, where Igor's driving the stagecoach.
It's so that shot is so masterfully done. Where it's slow. It's slowed down. It's like a slow-mo shot of the stagecoach going through, and it's just the music, and it just looks so cool, and it's so creepy and atmospheric, and it's so brilliantly done, man.
At one point, like when he shot that scene, and there was so much fog, it almost felt like it was intentional because the horses in the stagecoach almost look translucent.
Yeah.
There's a shot where it goes by and it's, they almost look like they disappear for a second, and I was like, well shot,
wonderfully shot, which I think is brilliant because and I guess we get into it when we get into that scene, but yeah, I'll save that for when we get into the scene. I'm still kind of talking about the scene where Aja is like calling Yavultich to rise out of the grave, and that scene alone is another iconic scene when he's rising from the grave.
Mm-hmm.
And he almost has it's almost like gelatin on his hands, and it's like his hands look very I don't know, very slimy and gross, and it just really adds to the really unsettling creep factor of him rising from the grave with the mask on his face and him coming back to life, willed by her willpower. Because I mean, if it wasn't for her getting a little bit of blood to kind of resurrect her in a sense, she's not fully resurrected now. She needs a lot more to happen before she can fully transform, but she has enough to will him back to life just from that alone.
Would you say he's a ghoul?
Yeah, he's a ghoul. He's essentially a ghoul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because his look is I mean, the whole time he just looks gross.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting way they did the makeup on his face, where it looks kind of like cracked and it looks like there's clay kind of on his face that's starting to crack and everything like that. Like his skin looks like it's cracking, which I thought was really neat because at the time I think that's one of the more desired effects to make him look like he's more a zombie than anything else, more
like
ghoul.
decaying. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's decaying because he'd been, like I said, underground for centuries.
2 centuries.
2 centuries, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene alone when he's rising out of the grave is remarkable.
Yeah, I dug it. Oh man. But yeah, so he goes and confronts
Kruvayan. Yeah. The older doctor, the one that's more of a mentor.
Well, no, he goes to the castle at first, doesn't he? Is it? Oh gosh, what's the guy's name?
Prince Vida.
Prince Vida, yeah. Okay, so he goes to him. He freaks out and goes ill pretty quick.
Yeah, he goes into a state of shock, and his kids, which we didn't. Well, Katya is one of the daughter, and then the princess, and then there's his son Constantine. So they start to worry about their father's well-being, and basically they already can kind of sense that he's on edge. So they feel like his health is deteriorating more and more. So they really, really scramble, and they know through Katya that there are 2 doctors that are staying in the local inn. So they have one of their stable hands actually go to the inn to kind of intercept and to relay a message like, hey, we need you here at the castle to kind of, determine what's going on with our dad. He's kind of going through something, and we need answers, essentially. We need to see if we can save him. So the stagehand actually goes, but he's intercepted on his way to the inn by Yavutic, who basically summons the doctor or Kruvian from the inn to come check the dad just to make sure everything's going okay. It's a snap, but there's of course he has other intentions with doing that. So
yeah, which I love the whole stagecoach and everything.
Yeah,
that's such a cool stagecoach.
It really is, man. It really is dope. Yeah, like all the props and stuff like that. Every prop in the castle, it just looks so period and
well, the stagecoach and the horses and everything look very goth, like old goth. And that's what I dug. I love that. I thought it was a neat touch. You could clearly tell that this was not a normal ride. It almost felt like something out of Dracula's castle. It's looks like something Dracula would ride in.
Absolutely. I even wrote down that I noticed when he actually summons Kruvian and he goes into the stagecoach with him and he's riding him back to the castle, Kruvian kind of looks around and he kind of he knows something's not right, and he knows that he's kind of set himself up for disaster, and it's almost like a fate thing where he kind of accepts his fate, like he knows something, he's not going to come out of this alive, because you can tell the unease on his face, and he doesn't really fully trust what's going on here, but it's too late now because he's already accepted the offer and the ride to go back to to the castle. So you could tell he knows his time is up, and that he's going to be this is going to be his last ride essentially.
Yeah. Well, he's very on edge. And this is that scene we were talking about with the stagecoach almost seeming like it disappears and comes back. Like it's very translucent.
Right. Which I wrote down too. I noticed that the way that Yavutic kind of gets around, it's almost like he's gliding through the air, and that he's going through the fog, and that's how he moves and gets to where he wants to be. Because you can tell, because there's a scene when Prince Vida's in the castle and he's in his bed, and the wind comes through the window and it starts knocking things over, and then all of a sudden behind the door Yavutic appears. So it's almost like he's traveling through essentially the air and the fog and the atmosphere, and getting from point A to point B that way.
That's brilliant.
Which I thought was cool. Yeah, I never really paid attention to that before, but I noticed it this time around. I'm like, that's really cool. It's almost like that's how he gets around, is through the atmosphere.
And that's probably not by accident. That was probably written in.
Intentional.
Yeah. That goes to show what kind of genius he had behind the camera.
Matter of fact, I know it has to be intentional, because when the stagecoach appears, when Cruvaillon is out by the inn with his pipe and he's smoking, you can see the fog at the bottom of the frame coming through, and then all of a sudden it cuts to him being there and him asking him to come with him to the castle. It almost has to be intentional.
Yeah. I love it.
Same here. It's brilliantly done, man.
And what I like about, so they make it to the castle, and I love this shot. So you have now Yavutic, whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah.
I'm going to call him Igor because that's his first name.
That's his first name.
But so he's now walking the doctor through the castle, and you get a sense of dread because the doctor feels it. Okay. And then all of a sudden you see now Igor's walking a bit faster, and all you see is a lantern, and he's still walking in front of him, and then he walks up to the lantern. The lantern is hanging there.
Yep.
I love that. Because at first I thought, at first my mind was like he hung it on the wall. And then I was like, no, that bitch is just like free hanging.
Yeah.
As if no one's there. And he's like standing there looking at it like it's odd to him.
So
and then it falls.
Unsettling and eerie. It really is.
Yeah. It's such a good shot.
Oh, it's a brilliant shot, man. We can go on and on about all the brilliant shots in this movie. There's just so fucking many, man. And that's why I love this movie so much. And that's why I was so excited to cover it. Just because of all the different shots that are more iconic than anything. I mean, it's brilliantly done.
Definitely.
I really believe that this movie, and Bava, in a sense, not only did he influence a lot of Italian filmmakers, I really firmly believe that he influenced a lot of early American filmmakers as well, with the mix of like the tone of the graphic violence along with the atmosphere and everything like that. I think Bava really influenced a lot of people in that, because he was really one of the trendsetters in doing that. And definitely transcended when it came to giallos and things like that, and even slasher films. I mean, it's hugely influential.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I wrote that down. It's like Italy has a way of like combining these more erotic themes and violence, but then also capturing that atmosphere perfectly. Like they know how to mesh the three together so well. And I just had to point that out. It's like I said, it's truly the maestro being a maestro.
Yeah. Well, I think and like you said, I think that's what sets the difference. You know, we could sit here and watch American films all day long and have a good time with them and laugh with them and stuff like that, but to get a sense of more serious tone and more in your face, but yet such a beautiful masterpiece. I mean, Italian horror, it's the way to go, you know?
It really is, and that's why I'm just a side note. I'm glad we're covering some Italian horror this month. I'm so excited, so ready to do it. Especially after going through and going through the summer slasher series, I was like, man, I really can't wait to get into some Italian stuff.
Yeah.
Little different, but also very influential to even the slasher stuff that we were watching. Many of Bava's films are straight up ripped off, and even Friday the 13th. So, I mean, it's like I said, he's had his thumbprint in everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, dude, they're essentially vampires. I mean, this is a vampire film in a sense. I mean, very subtly done, but there's even when they check the neck of the prince, he's got like puncture wounds in his neck. But the cool thing is that Bava does is he never explicitly shows like the vampiric scenes. He never shows them. You never see them, really.
No, but I think it is said through dialogue, because I do recall them saying vampiric ways or something like that.
Yeah.
I believe it was in that opening shot.
Probably.
When they were torturing the witch in the beginning. I think that's when they mentioned it, but I do recall them mentioning it in the film.
Yeah, but it's so subtle and it's so under the
radar. Yeah.
Don't really even think about it. It's not at the forefront in your mind when you're watching the movie. You don't really think of it as a vampire film, but essentially it is. I mean, you have characters, and I noticed when they checked his neck, I saw one puncture wound. So I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So I wrote it down, and then the priest later on says something about finding 2 puncture wounds. I'm like, oh, okay, it's just I must have missed the other one. I didn't see.
Yeah, I only saw the one too. So yeah,
so
I'm right there with you.
I wonder how they're actually draining the blood from the victim with the one puncture wound. Is it just one, like, fang? Or I don't know. I thought that was interesting. But then he kind of shorted up by saying, no, there's 2. Check the body.
But then when he comes back to life, because they had an open casket in the, I guess you would say the lobby or whatever of this castle. And then at some point he comes back to life and he rolls out and confronts the princess, Katia or whatever.
Yep.
But and she says, "Father," and he says, "Not anymore," or something. I forget the dialogue exactly, but he assured her that Dad was no more. He was something else.
It's essentially an instrument of evil.
Yeah. He made that very clear to her.
I think it's more ghoul than anything because it's not more a zombie. It's just more ghoul. I don't know. You could kind of make the case of either or, but yeah. In a sense, it's almost like a ghoul because she is essentially using them. She's using her trance-like abilities to kind of mold and control them, even though they've been drained of their life essence of blood. Because that's what she uses. She Kruvayan, she pretty much drains his essence of blood, and that's what's causing her to get stronger and causing her to actually use that power to well, she kind of did it before because she had him in a trance when she brought him to her, and she was able to essentially drain him. But she's getting stronger as the more she, of course, drains the blood from her victims. So I thought that was interesting. It's just very vampiric at the end of the day. It's the themes are there, but it's subtle that you wouldn't. They're not even. You don't even think about them. You just think of it being a supernatural witch movie. You don't think of it being more vampiric.
Well, and again, a lot of the shots and stuff, it does remind you of even shots of the castle and stuff. It reminds you of, or at least it reminds me of, Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I don't know, maybe he took some inspiration from the early years of American cinema and kind of molded his own, but even before then, you had Nosferatu that came out in 1922, So, you know, Mario Bava probably seen that film
Yeah.
as well. You know, so yeah, so that could have been influential as well, which essentially was the storyline of Dracula. You know, because there was a whole debacle. We won't get into that, but there was a whole court case and everything on that one.
Well, the cool thing is, I think that became more of a popular thing because 2 years prior, Terrence Fisher directed Dracula with Christopher Lee, and that movie was successful. So I think maybe that came out, like I said, 2 years prior to Black Sunday. So maybe a little bit of that was influential because I love that movie as well. That movie's fantastic. So maybe that had a lot to do with how popular this movie was at the time because it had, like I said, that was very popular in and of itself. So maybe Bava actually was influenced a little by Terrence Fisher as well, to go along with the more universal monster stuff, and of course of Nosferatu as well.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I kind of raised the question because was Nosferatu big in the the 50s and stuff? Because I know at one point they were supposed to destroy all copies of Nosferatu, if I'm not mistaken. When it came out, okay, I guess we'll get into it a little bit, but I really didn't want to get on a tangent. But so,
hey man,
so
it's relevant.
yeah,
Relevant.
so Nosferatu, when Nosferatu came out, supposedly the history behind it was, obviously it's the same storyline as Dracula. Well, from what I understand, if I'm not mistaken, Bram Stoker's daughter took whoever made Nosferatu basically to court and won the case. And it was court ordered that all copies be destroyed, all the memorabilia, posters, stuff like that was supposed to be destroyed. So for the longest time, if I'm not mistaken, Nosferatu was not in existence. So, and I guess from what I understand, copies started surfacing because they never got destroyed, and now we still have it to this day.
Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah, because I mean, it is a good film.
Yeah, oh yeah, could have been considered a lost film. I mean, a lot of films at that time, there's still some films that were made in that era that are considered lost films. There's no viable print of them, so they can't ever be seen. But they're known to exist. You just can't see them because there's no prints. So could have been another casualty of that. Thankfully it wasn't. I mean,
because if I'm not mistaken, I think the story goes is that they found a print in Spain, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
And it was able to be re-released.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on the history of where they found the print, but that's probably right. Somewhere in Europe, I'm sure.
Yeah, like I said, I'm thinking it was Spain, but I could be wrong.
That wouldn't be too far off if it was somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
So, but yeah, so that's why I'm saying I'm not sure if it was an inspiration or not. I mean, clearly the 1930, what was it? When did Dracula come out? It came out in the 30s, didn't it?
Yeah.
So Bela Lugosi, stuff like that, and there's some shots where there's like piercing eyes, and instantly I go back to Bela Lugosi as Dracula, and you got those piercing eyes. So I'm thinking there's some influence there as well. But I mean, still he made it his own film, and that's what I love about it.
Oh yeah, it might have been inspired by this and that, but it's wholly its own film for sure, and a lot of it has to do with the short story as well that he took inspiration from too. That the V story, a lot of that has to go into the plot as well. So a lot of that was retconned through what Bava was trying to emulate with that short story. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said, it's an amalgamation of a lot of things, I think, but Bava still made it his own.
So going back to the storyline, so pretty much at this point, who was it? I can't pronounce his name. Dr. Crovan? Crouvaillon, excuse me.
Yeah.
So he's now disappeared, and everyone's like blaming him because Dad's dead, you know?
Yeah.
So everyone's like, had he not left, Dad would be alive.
Be alive, yeah, or we'd at least know what's going on with him. But since he just disappeared in the night, which I thought was cool because he's actually hiding within the walls of the castle, because there's so many hidden compartments and so many secret areas, which I love. It's such a trope in horror, but it's a trope that's near and dear to my heart, is all these little components and all these little secret compartments in houses and castles that you could lead you to this corridor and lead you to this, and hidden secrets and all that stuff. I love that kind of shit. I eat it up. But we find out that that's exactly where he's been, and that's where Yavutic has been too. They've been hiding within the walls of the castle and the secret chambers.
Yeah. Yeah, I dug it because there's one shot where what is it, the painting of Igor or whatever?
Yeah.
It gets accidentally burned.
Yeah, well, yeah, it does. It gets caught up. The tapestry or the drapery in front of it, because I think they tried to hide it because it was causing the prince to really go into a panic, and it was really unsettling Katya, I believe. So they decided to hide it with tapestry, but the tapestry ended up catching on fire, and as the house. What is he? I'm not even sure what he is. He's just like a
butler.
Yeah,
servant,
butler.
Yeah.
Trying to get the flames out, and he actually pierced through the canvas of the painting and found a secret lever that turned can actually open up the archway of the fireplace.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Which is where, and that leads to a corridor that leads to back to the crypt.
Right, back to the crypt, correct.
Yeah. Because you got to have that in your castle.
And I thought it was a pretty cool, racy kind of painting of a naked Barbara Steele holding an apple, which is very, 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 very interesting that she's holding an apple and she's naked. And I was like, oh, I was thinking more biblical sense. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting.
The first sin created on earth.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, that's pretty.
It's so going to that painting. I'm wondering if there was. So you making the remark that she didn't want to show her breast on screen, which I can understand.
I think the story was that she was convinced that Bava was trying to get her nude or trying to show a little bit more.
Well, I mean, so we're getting closer to the scene where he rips her blouse off, essentially, and cleavage does show a little bit. And I thought they were going straight for it. You know, I thought that was what was going to happen there. But I think that was just enough, you know. And I'm almost wondering if it got to that scene, he probably might have asked her, "Hey, I need you to show this," or. You know?
Well, that scene has a lot of merit because what Bava's essentially doing is showing her cross. That's what they're mainly focusing on, is that cross, because that cross comes into play at the climax of the movie as well.
Yes.
So basically that's what Bava's doing. He's not doing that for a gratuitous sake. He's showing that cross is going to be a valuable part of the story in the climax. So I understand what he was doing. Just so happens that she's hanging it, and of course, right there where her cleavage is. So,
right.
I mean,
but maybe going into that scene, you know, who's to sit there and say that the script reads, you know, shirt gets ripped off.
Right, and I read that Barbara Steele wasn't given a full script; she was giving lines each day, so she wasn't given the full script in its entirety. So maybe that's why she also thought that they were trying to. You know, she's in Italy. She doesn't really speak the language. It's like a culture shock kind of thing. Maybe that's why they thought she thought that it was because, you know, they wanted to get her nude on screen, which, you know, even for that time was very racy and kind of unheard of.
And who's to say she didn't pose for that painting?
Right.
You know,
Well,
so
I mean, the funny thing is, I think, I believe now that Bava hired her or wanted her because he saw her in a magazine modeling, and he was captivated by her, and that's why he reached out and wanted her to be in this film. So I thought that was pretty neat. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well. Because Barbara Steele is a very, very beautiful woman, and she's very striking. So, she has such stage and like screen presence is what I was trying to say. She has such a presence about her, and that's why to me, she's always been my scream queen, because she just emulates something when she's on screen, and it's just her look, her vibrant like sexuality, and just her being such an attractive, gothic, beautiful woman that, I don't know, just speaks to many audiences why people love her so much, and it's completely understandable why. So, yeah, like I said, I could understand why he would see her in a magazine and be captivated by her, but not know if she can really act or not. Just not be aware of it. So it's pretty interesting how he got a hold of her and how he got her in this movie.
yeah, it is. But with all that going on, I could probably see why she thought that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it from both sides, of course.
Yeah,
there's always a reason for everything, and I see both sides of the coin, kind of understand. So.
yeah.
It's a
But
culture thing.
even still, that painting is a beautiful shot. I like that painting.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Not just the fact that she's nude in the painting. I'm just saying it's actually a pretty painting.
That's what I thought of. It was like, as when Constantine was like looking at the painting and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, that's kind of like your sister. Like, what are you doing? What's going on? But of course,
he's probably like, I'm gonna have to sneak down here later.
Yeah. So it was pretty funny. I just kind of like focused in on it for a hot second, just a hot second.
Hot second. And then Constantine gets into a quarrel with Igor.
Igor, yeah.
And then miraculously falls down a fucking hole.
Oh yeah. What I love when he's backing up, he can kind of feel the entranceway of the trap, or the hole in the. Well, it's a trap basically.
I love that. I love how Scooby-Doo this fucking castle is.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
It's great. I was waiting for him to pull off a mask and go, "It's the town mayor." I would have gotten away with it. These meddling kids.
Wasn't for those damn kids, yeah. I don't know if you caught this, man, but Barbara Steele has my favorite line in the movie when she's talking to. I believe she's talking to Andre, and she says, no, she's talking to Cruvaillon, I believe, and she says, "You will be dead to man, but you will be alive in death." I thought that was an amazing line. So it stuck with me when I heard that, and just her delivery. It's very, very. I'm gonna like beat a dead horse with this word, but so iconic. It just really stuck with me. It always has.
Yeah. I like that line. That's a good line.
Yeah, it's a great line.
Yeah. So, where are we at? We're at a point where Andre is here to save the day, essentially.
Essentially, he rides back to the castle after finding out from the priest that the only way to vanquish them is to puncture their left eye. And that will, because they find the body of Cruvaillon in Igor's grave, his freshly dug grave. And that's another thing. The effects on his dead body and stuff look really, really unsettling too. It's like, it's really, really bizarre how they did it, but it really looks eerie. Yeah. And he basically takes the instrument and plunges it through his eye and pretty much releases his soul, and he's finally at rest, and they find out that that's basically how you conquer the evil. And he rides back to the castle to kind of vanquish all the evil. Now that he knows how to do it, but they do the old switcheroo on him at the end, where he believes that Katya is actual Aja, or is Aja, and vice versa. So he's almost going to vanquish his love, essentially, without realizing that it's her.
Yeah.
And so he notices, of course, when he comes back into play, the crucifix, because they know if they press the crucifix to anybody that's the vessel of evil, it'll start to burn and cause, an irritation, and it'll cause them to kind of like look away. So as soon as he realizes that, he knows what's going on, and he's able to reverse the tide back over to the actual witch.
Well, before all this occurs, let's talk about that transformation shot.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my God, dude, that is awesome. I want to know how they did it.
It's superimposed almost, the lines that they drew. You could tell it's drawn lines of wrinkles and stuff on their face.
Well, I got to kind of wondering. I was like, is it drawn lines, or did they use like shadow effects with lights? Because it almost looked like they actually shot it. It wasn't like frame by frame images. It was, I don't know. I mean, I guess it could have been frame by frame images, but there's actual stuff happening in the film while it's occurring.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so neat because, so the witch is laying on this slab because the sarcophagus is opened at this point, and she reaches down and touches Katya, and basically you see her beauty transforming to the essentially rotten witch.
Yeah.
And she is like, it's almost like she's draining her of her life force, because you could just see her it almost looks like she's getting
older. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was so cool.
It's really cool. It's really, really sick. And they do it multiple times too.
Yeah, it happens.
Not just like
a
a one-off. It's not just like a one-off effect. It's done multiple times. So it's done with craft and with care many times, and it's so good, man. It
just goes to show you how ambitious he was on his first movie. It's almost like he wanted to set a tier for himself.
Right. He almost wanted to set the standard for his own filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he did. He knocked it out the park.
Yeah.
Like I said, love that shot. There's a scene when the witch is in her crypt, and she's starting to reform, and it's the way that the shot is, but you can see like almost the glass like clearness of her eyes, but there's so much dark right here, and her face is lit perfectly. It just looks so amazing, man. I wish I could like take a like a snapshot of just that scene and freeze frame it and show you, and show the the listeners and stuff like that, because it's so amazingly done with the shadow work.
Oh yeah.
Brilliantly done. Brilliantly shot.
Yeah. But maybe I'll add a quick image of that when I'm editing, because it's a good shot. I know what you're talking about.
It gives you like chills when you see it. It's really so, when you think of it, and the filmmaking behind it, the technicality behind it, and that Bava was a renowned cinematographer. He knows cinematography. That's his go-to, his bread and butter. That's what he cut his teeth on. So he knows how to frame a shot and make the lighting look perfect. And that was a perfect shot.
Well, it's just really cool because it almost, like what you were talking about, the eyes, they almost look like eggs.
Yeah.
At one point, like the yolk of an egg.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the eyes were forming. Your mind instantly goes there. At first, like when the blood first started dripping and stuff started moving, it almost looked like worms were moving.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's how he got that effect.
Well, that's what I want to know. I want to know how that effect was done and how they did that. I really do. I'd love to know that.
Because it would have been hard doing freeze frame back in that time.
Oh yeah.
But I'm wondering if that's how he did it. I don't know.
Yeah, the thing that's unfortunate is a lot of the people that were had a hand in production, I'm sure, have passed on, and that you stories anymore, which is just sad. It's a sad
Well,
thing.
do you know on the Blu-ray, is there any like behind the scenes footage, or if there's any like interviews and stuff?
I'm not sure. Like
I'm
I
gonna
said,
have to.
for this view, I couldn't find my Blu-ray. I had to watch my DVD, which was fine.
Mhm.
It still looks good, but I didn't see any. Well, you couldn't get, Bava on a commentary track, but behind the scenes stuff, I would love to know how that effect alone was done. I know you mentioned something about wanting to know how the branding effect was done.
Mhm.
That's another effect I would love to hear about and hear how they actually made that happen. But like I said, I'm not quite sure on my Blu-ray. I can't find my Blu-ray, man. I'm looking everywhere for it and I can't find it. Luckily, I had the DVD still, so I'm sure it's around here somewhere. I just gotta find it.
Yeah,
Couldn't.
it's on a shelf somewhere.
Oh yeah, it's somewhere. Just anywhere in plain sight. That's for sure. It's probably hidden, or not hidden somewhere, but set outside somewhere.
That's like mine is right now off the shelf and in a pile right now because I'm having to take all now that I've got my shelves up. We decided, hey, we want to remodel, so we want to repaint the whole house. So now I've got to take all my movies down, shelving down, so I can paint.
That's great.
Yeah, that gives me a chance to catalog everything because I want to redo the app so I know what the hell I've got, because I'm now in a bind because I've been rebuying shit that I already have, thinking I don't have it. So
I hate when that happens.
I need to get back to start adding stuff to an app. That way I can see what the hell I've got.
Yeah. I do it, man.
Yeah. But so yeah, back to that shot though. I really enjoy that scene though. That last scene where she's playing Andre, I love it.
She kind of gets vulnerable for a minute there because she tells Katya, and Katya's not even like awake or conscious at that time, but she tells her that the love that she had for Andre, or the love that they had for each other, could have saved her. And that could have defeated her. I was like, well, that's her being very vulnerable at that time. I don't know if she's telling her that because she's unconscious and she wouldn't know. She's just spilling her guts out to her. But I was like, that's some you don't get that very often with the witches and stuff like that. They don't show like a vulnerable side to them at all, especially with Aja. She's very like, she has a lot of character and a lot of like, there's a lot to her. And I would love for it to be explored more, because it seemed like, they didn't have enough time to explore more of that character and more of the character of Voltage, even though the scenes that they're in are fantastic because they're so atmospheric and they're so unsettling and eerie and just all the above. I mean, but they're
very dark.
Yeah, very dark, very gloom.
And almost. So maybe she's at that point getting a little cocky.
Yeah,
100%. Like I've got this. This is, essentially, because she does tell her, you were born to basically be my vessel. That's it. And she tells her that's why she was there. That's her whole existence, her whole life. That's what it boils down to, is she was supposed to be the vessel of her. And then that's when she tells her, the love could have saved you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fills it out.
That's dark.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, it's very dark when you think about it. It's very fucked up when you think about it. Yeah. And she was just born to be a vessel of evil. And that's all her life was supposed to be. It's all her, she didn't have any value other than that.
Damn. That's dark.
It is dark. It's dark themes that he plays with in this.
Mm-hmm.
But I love how they, at the end, they find out that it's her because her rib cage and stuff is still exposed. She hasn't fully reincarnated yet. So her rib cage is still exposed, even though has the beauty of Katya, she does not have the full body yet.
Yeah, which I found that very interesting, because my thing is like, so Andre came in, he was ready to slay the witch that was laying there.
He was ready
know.
to put the stake in the heart and do the stake in the
Well,
heart.
in the left eye,
Yeah, but
and
right.
yeah. So, but the thing is like, she's like, go ahead, kill her while we have the chance, and she's like egging him on, but wouldn't she need her to be alive so she could finish her reincarnation, essentially?
I think once her physical body is vanquished, in terms of Katya, I think that's when she fully becomes 100% her. The fact that the body is still living and it's not quite passed on yet, and her spirit and her soul are still there, has pretty much condemned or prevented her from actually becoming complete. And that's why she was like, bones and rib cage and stuff like that. She wasn't 100% reincarnated yet. So I believe that they set it up to where she has to be completely vanquished for her to actually be reincarnated.
Okay. Because that's where I was coming from. Like, wouldn't she need to, like, keep her alive and touch her until she literally sucks all life out of her?
Well, it seemed like she took her essence from her, but she wasn't able to take her body yet.
Okay.
And I guess it wasn't able to happen yet until her physical manifestation was vanquished and she was actually killed. Because she wasn't dead. I mean, her spirit was leaving her body, but she wasn't quite dead yet. Her body was still, animated in a sense. Maybe I'm not saying that correctly, but I don't feel like I am. But
I get your point.
You know what I'm saying.
But yeah, so he goes to kill her, sees the cross, and instantly he's like, wait a minute. I love the fact that he pulls the cross off and he touches her on the head with it, and there's no reaction.
No reaction whatsoever. So he knows after that.
Mm-hmm. And I think he hold it up to her. He doesn't actually touch it to the witch. He just kind of holds it up, and she kind of cowers down to it a little bit. Yeah. Which right there tells him, and then that's when all the townspeople come in and kind of save the day.
The angry mob, just like in Frankenstein.
Yeah.
There's always an angry mob in these black and white gothic horror films.
Well, I just love the fact that he didn't see to it that she was killed or anything. He was like, she's the witch, take her.
Yeah, and then they all just go and they grab her and they take her outside. And they're able to burn her body like they weren't able to do centuries ago. They finally were able to complete the process and finish her off.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's depressed because he thinks that them burning her body and having her essence be gone, that Katya was going to die with her because she had already crossed over. So he's depressed. And he's, basically telling the priest, like, I got nothing to live for now. And the priest is like, dude, are you serious? He's looking at him like, what are you talking about? He's like, you can live for God. You can live for so much. And he's just kind of like, you're ready to give up on life just because you can't be with this woman you've only known for
a day?
Yeah, just a couple of days. It's just so funny the look he gives them.
That's some straight up mad love right there.
Yeah, it is, man. Like,
if you're willing to throw your whole life away because
when people say like there's no love at first sight, well, watch Black Sunday. There's love at first sight. Literally, when the two see each other, just boom, instant sparks, instant love there.
Apparently,
yeah.
When Andre meets Kasha,
I love I love every time they have a scene together, the sappy piano music that's played when they have a scene together. It's so great because you know what Bava's doing there. He's setting up that this is the romance. We have to have romance in the movie. Around this time, you have to have the romance angle that was standard in movies at that time. So, even if the people weren't able to, I noticed that in a lot of 50s and 60s movies, they shoehorned in a romance and there was no like character development in the romance. It's just like all of a sudden there's a main character that's a man and another one that's a woman, and all of a sudden they're in love now. There's no build up to it or anything. It just happens.
Yeah.
I always
Okay.
thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
I've seen it in a bunch of stuff. It always seemed like
Yeah.
almost like a trope in and of itself in the day.
Especially in Italian films, because Italian films, they are eccentric and romantic, as well, along with the beauty of Italian cinema. So
Yeah, absolutely, man.
'cause it happens in countless films that we've seen, I mean, it happens was it Deep Red? It happens in Deep Red too.
Yeah,
Or-
but I mean, with those two characters, they had some time to kind of build a
True.
little bit.
True. Yeah.
They
But
focus
I mean,
more.
you get what I'm saying, though. It happens throughout Italian cinema, at least that I've seen it happens. No, one of the things we didn't talk about, and I'm kind of backtracking a little bit because
Fine.
we're
That's fine.
we're at the very end of the film. The scene where Igor gets burnt alive, dead.
Was it
No,
Igor,
no.
the prince? When the prince came back, he got caught in the fireplace.
That's what it was. That was what it was. That's what it was. Yeah.
That's a very graphic scene too, man.
Yeah. His face melts.
Melts, dude. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, wow, damn.
Yeah.
Very graphic.
That's right, because Igor gets thrown into the pit.
Yeah, he gets thrown into the pit.
That's what it was. Yeah. So
because somehow I don't know how they did it, but Constantine was able, because it's a bottomless pit, but he's still hanging on, and he's able to drag him down with him, and then he's able to get pulled up. I couldn't figure out how that worked.
Yeah.
But there's supernatural all throughout this film, so I'm not gonna, like I said, not gonna harp on it.
Yeah.
Not gonna worry about it. It's just that it's the standpoint, and like that's what they're doing.
I love the fact that he was like burnt, and it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cool effect.
Can we talk about the body count? The body count's pretty high in this film.
Yeah. So you got.
Never really think about it, but there's a lot of death in this movie. A lot of death.
Well, let's figure it up real quick, because see, I'm not thinking there is, but I guess there is.
There is, man. Yeah.
You got the prince, the son.
Yep. The servant.
Doctor,
The servant.
servant.
Doctor. Yeah.
The
Stagecoach handler guy.
Mm-hmm.
First one. There's quite a few. It's like 7 in total.
Yeah, 7 or 8. Yeah.
High body count.
If you're counting Igor and the witch in the beginning as well.
Yeah.
And then again when she gets killed again.
Yeah. It's a lot of death in this movie.
2 deaths. I count that as 2.
Yeah.
Even though it's on the same person. Yeah. It's a overall fun experience. I love everything about this film. You want to go into ratings?
I'm ready, dude.
Is it a no-brainer?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for me. You already know what I'm rating it. This is
4.
Not even.
A 3?
If I could rate this a 6, I would. This movie's in my top 50, I'd say. I love Black Sunday, man. This movie speaks to me. It speaks to everything I love. I love Italian Gothic, black and white horror. I eat that shit up. It means so much to me. It's like I said, this movie is one of those movies I love to throw on whenever it's like stormy. It's like a stormy night. It's just, you could hear the rain like pouring outside, the thunder, the lightning. It's almost a perfect way to watch this movie. And really, I mean, I could watch this movie anyway, but man, when you get into that mode and that headspace of watching it during a storm, it just brings out so much. You almost hear like the ambient sounds more when that's happening. You almost feel the atmosphere more when that's happening. But yeah, this movie to me on a technical standpoint is flawless. It's masterful. Cinematography is second to none. The effects for the time were just mind-blowing, really mind-blowing. I mean, when it's like censored in Britain for all those years, You can see that something's happening here. These effects are standing out, and that there's something special. The story, I mean, the acting. It's hard to gauge acting when movies are dubbed, because you don't get the natural like lines being read, and it's hard to gauge acting. So I mean, I don't even look. I just look at seeing Barbara Steele and knowing that this is the movie. This was her breakout film, her breakout role. She's my scream queen. I love her, and she's such a beautiful woman, such an amazing presence on screen. This movie for me is a 5 out of 5, easy. Any day of the week. It's a special movie to me. I'm so glad you got a chance to watch it, man. And I'm so glad we were able to talk about it. I've been wanting to talk. This is one I've been wanting to talk about for a long time on the show, and I'm finally able to cross it off my bucket list. So I'm happy. Yeah, I could talk hours about this movie, but we only have to small sample size of show. We have to condense it to. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yes. Well, yeah, so my rating again, like you said, 5 out of 5. I'll go ahead and say that. Everything about this film, it's just, I love it. I can't say one bad thing about this film. I loved it all. It blew my mind how he did some of the special effects, or how he captured some of the special effects, especially for that time period. When this film was made, it was at a point in cinema where practical effects were very hokey, and you could clearly tell that it was phony. But in this case, I mean, everything looked realistic. I mean, I even said, did he burn her, like for real? Did he brand her? Because it looked real. Like,
it felt more grounded. Yeah, it felt more grounded. It didn't feel
even the shot where the guy was on fire, and you could tell, like, right away, you could see he was moving around. He had a flame on his back, but then when he rolled over,
it's a stunt.
But I mean, even still, then, like, they would just a lot of films, they would just throw the fake body into the fire or something. But in this case, I mean, it looked really good. And I mean, you could tell that, like, he was laying in front of the fire while rolling around, but it was that shot that it looked like he was actually rolling around in the fire. I loved it. Brilliant. Everything about this being Bava's first film and being as brilliant as it is, I mean, you just can't go wrong with it. And, it sets you in a mood for what did he come out with next, and from every film I've seen from him, I like, but I can't wait to dig more into his archive and see what else he's come up with, because it's all kind of a new experience for me. But this film, I love this film, hands down.
Like I said, me and you sat here and we talked, we discussed the film and everything like that. But how many times did we say, "Oh, this is an iconic shot"? Or how many times did I say, "This is an iconic shot. This is an iconic shot"? Just about every shot is iconic. So when you have a movie just filled with iconic shot after iconic shot, like, you have something special there. And the fact that this is Bava's first movie, it amazes me, these filmmakers that hit the ground running with a movie, it being their first feature length film, and then just knocking it out of the park. And it's like, man, how do you do it? Like, it's so much talent that somebody has as a filmmaker to do something like that, and then to continue that trend of excellence throughout their career, like Bava did. It's almost unheard of, man.
Yeah. Yep. And I can't agree more. I'm gonna continue to watch this film. This is going up where I can watch it every year, because it's a good film.
I love watching it. I love watching it around Halloween time.
And like I told you, I appreciate black and white, yes, but it's at times it can be a turnoff, for me. I really have to be in the mood to watch a black and white film, but this is a film that I feel I could pop in and it would almost be terrible if it was in color. You know, I wouldn't say terrible because it's still a good film, beautifully
Still great.
shot film, but I guess the words I'm looking for is it would take away from the essence, you know,
Yeah.
of it.
So much atmosphere, it would just be gone. Just
Mhm.
void of a lot of atmosphere that he builds up with his lighting and his cinematography. It would just
Yeah.
be almost criminal to ever. I hope that they never colorize this film and never. I don't know why they would ever do that. That just seems to me to be just a completely dumb idea.
Mhm.
Any classic black and white horror film, don't add color, don't colorize it. It's going to be a failure.
Yeah.
Just don't touch them. Leave them alone. Let them be the classics that they are, and just don't speak them in any way.
Yeah. But yeah. You want to cover anything else?
No, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just glad we got to talk about it.
Yes. You ready to land it?
So yeah,
Perfect. All right. Well, folks, we appreciate you joining us with another episode. We hope we didn't ruin this for you. We hope that you stopped and you went and found it somewhere that you could watch it, because it is a beautifully shot film. It is a masterpiece, in my opinion. I think Tony's as well. So we're glad that you stayed with us, and like I said, I just hope we didn't ruin anything for you. But even still, if you haven't seen it and you watch this review, it didn't do any justice. You need to go watch this film. If you're a true fan of cinema, especially horror cinema, this is one of the best ones you can watch, in my opinion.
movie that has really inspired everything that's in more modern mainstream horror. I mean, a lot of that has inspiration, and a lot of that takes away from Black Sunday. So this is a trendsetter film. This is an iconic film that needs to be seen. And hopefully, you know, if you guys come back in and you've seen it and you watched it, tell us what you think. Tell us what you thought of it. We hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, we'll champion this film to as many, you know, first time watchers as we can. Just because I feel like this is something that, you know, it's a more easily mainstream film in the Italian market, I'd say. It's easier to get into a Black Sunday than it is something like one of your random giallos, or it's so much easier to get into. So I mean, like I said, we champion it. We hope you guys watch it, and if you did watch it, we hope you enjoyed it.
Definitely. But folks, like I said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and let your friends know about us if they don't know about us, and head over to our Facebook group and keep things rolling. We appreciate it, and we love getting more content out. I think Tony and I are both in agreement that we're going to do Kill Baby Kill next, correct? Is that what we're going to do?
That's our next one.
So make sure you watch that film, and then tune in to us. We will do Kill Baby Kill. So with that, guys, later.
Later, guys.